When you've been a priest long enough, you learn that evil doesn't always hide in shadows. Sometimes, it hides in the voice of a child. The church never wanted this story told, not the way it really happened. But I was there. The night a 13-year-old boy spoke in a language he'd never learned, cursed the holy, and moved furniture without touching it. They call him Rolando. But what I remember was not a name. It was the sound of something ancient answering back. I first met the family in the winter of 1949. They lived in Maryland, simple, decent people, devout Lutherans. Their boy Roland had been a quiet child, until his aunt passed away. She was the one who'd introduced him to Ouija boards. The night after her funeral, the scratching started, walls, ceilings, floors. They thought it was rats. But rats don't whisper your name. When I entered that house, I could feel the air, heavy, charged, like standing in the middle of a thunderstorm that wouldn't break. Crucifixes turned upside down. Holy water hissed when it touched the boy's skin. He'd sit in his bed, eyes rolled back, murmuring in voices that weren't his. His mother said, "It's not my son anymore, Father." And she was right. We began in the child's bedroom, a small, pale room that smelled of medicine and fear. Father Hughes led the prayers and I held the holy relics. Roland's body shook violently, his face twisting, contorting. Then he laughed. A deep, guttural sound, mocking us. He spat out Latin phrases no 13-year-old could possibly know. Ego sum legio, quia multi summus. I'm legion, for we are many. The room went cold. A crucifix ripped itself from the wall and struck Father Hughes across the arm. He bled, but didn't stop. He kept chanting until Roland's bed began to lift off the floor. And just as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The boy went limp. For a moment we thought we'd won. Until the next morning, when Father Hughes was found in his rectory, hands shaking, muttering to himself. He never performed another exorcism again. That's when the church sent me. We moved Roland to a Jesuit hospital in St. Louis, away from the public eye. We tried to keep it secret. But there are some things you can't hide. The nurses heard growls in the corridors. Equipment moved on its own. One night, the words "hell" appeared carved across Roland's chest, fresh, bleeding as if by invisible hands. He screamed in a voice that rattled the windows. "He is mine." We prayed through the night. Every psalm, every Latin verse, every ounce of faith we had. But the boy fought back, or rather it did. He thrashed with inhuman strength, broke free from restraints, and lunged at one of the priests, screaming the man's childhood sins, things no one else could have known. And then he laughed ag. For weeks it went on. Our faith cracked. We questioned everything. Until one night, after 27 days, we decided to end it. We gathered in the hospital's chapel basement, candles, crucifix, relics. The boy lay in the center, bound, his eyes black, his voice gone. I began. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. The moment I said amen, the lights shattered. Darkness swallowed the room. And then a roar. Not from the boy, but from every direction at once. He levitated off the bed, arms stretched like a crucifixion. His mouth opened wide, impossibly wide, and from within came the scream of 1,000 voices. Then suddenly, silence. The candles reignited. Roland collapsed. When we looked upon him, he was crying, whispering only 2 words. "It's gone." The boy recovered. He remembered nothing, not the possession, not the violence. He went on to live a quiet life, changed his name, built a family. But I never forgot. Because 2 weeks after the exorcism, when I was cleaning the altar, I found something carved into the wood, faint but clear. "I will return." And sometimes when I close my eyes at night, I can still hear the scratching. From under the floorboards. From the walls of the church. And I wonder if we ever truly sent it back at. Evil doesn't need to be seen to be real. Sometimes, it just waits for another invitation. They told me not to open her coffin. They told me to pray, to leave it alone. But I couldn't. Because the screams, they hadn't stopped. This happened in 1977, in a remote convent outside Verona, Italy. The Vatican called it a case of hysteria. But what I saw, what I buried, will haunt me until my final breath. My name is Father Paolo. And this is the story of the nun who refused to rest in peace. The convent was old, centuries old. It sat high in the northern hills, surrounded by cypress trees and endless fog. When I arrived, I could already feel it, that heavy air of sorrow that clings to holy ground where too many prayers have gone unanswered. I'd been sent to oversee a funeral. A nun, Sister Agnes, had died suddenly during evening prayers. Heart failure, they said. The other sisters whispered of strange behavior before her death. Sleepless nights, muttering in Latin she didn't know, scratching at her door until her fingers bled. When I entered her cell, the first thing I noticed was the smell, like burnt incense and iron. On the wall, carved into the plaster, were the words, "In tenebris lucet." It shines in the darkness. The funeral was simple. The sisters wept quietly as we lowered her into the earth behind the chapel. But during the final blessing, I saw something that made my hands tremble, a faint movement beneath her veil. It was so slight I thought I imagined it. That night, the convent bells rang 3 times by themselves. The sisters swore they hadn't touched the ROP. At dawn, the ground above her grave had sunk, like something had shifted underneath. Mother Superior dismissed it as soft soil. But by the 3rd day the smell returned, stronger, and the scratching began. It started in the chapel. Late at night while the sisters prayed, they heard it, scratch, 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 coming from beneath the altar. They said it sounded like nails on stone, desperate, stead. What? One of the novices fainted when she saw dust falling from between the floorboards. When we lifted the tiles, the smell hit us first, decay mixed with candle wax and roses. And then something else, a faint humming. It was her, Sister Agnes. Her body lay beneath the chapel, not where we buried her. Her eyes were open, her lips moved, and though no sound came out, I swear to you, she was mouthing the Lord's Prayer. Backward. Yes. We sealed the chapel and sent word to the diocese. A Vatican investigator arrived, a quiet man named Father Lucio. He carried nothing but a rosary and a silver crucifix. He told us to pray. Then that night he ordered us to open the coffin again. When we did, the lid was cracked from the inside. Her hands, folded neatly 3 days before, were now pressed flat against the wood, splintered nails dug deep. Her face had changed. Her mouth was frozen in a scream. Lucio whispered something in Latin and closed her eyes. Then he said, "She made a vow. And something else, accepted I. T." We learned the truth later. Before her death, Sister Agnes had been obsessed with cleansing evil, fasting for weeks, praying in isolation, believing she could cast out sin through self-sacrifice. She'd performed rituals, not sanctioned by the church. She'd carved symbols into her own skin, circles of protection mixed with older, pagan marks. The night before she died, she told another nun, "He's coming for me. I can hear him through the walls." After that, she never spoke again. Father Lucio insisted we bury her in sacred ground outside the convent, a stone crypt sealed with holy water and prayers. As we lowered her in, the wind howled so fiercely it snuffed out every candle. And as the stone slab closed, we heard it. A sound that didn't belong in this world. It wasn't screaming this time. It was laughter. Soft at first, then echoing through the chapel, until every sister was crying and clutching her rosary. When silence returned, Lucio turned to me and said, "If she speaks again, Father, do not answer." Weeks passed. The convent grew quiet again. But one night, as I walked past the graveyard, I saw movement near the crypt. A shadow kneeling before it, praying. When I called out, the shadow turned. It was Sister Agnes. Her habit torn, her face pale, but her lips still moving. And when I ran toward her, she vanished into the mist. All that remained was her rosary, still warm, lying on the GR. The next morning, I found the same words carved on the chapel door. In tenebris lucet. It shines in the dark. We buried her twice, and both times she found her way back to the light. But maybe that's the mistake we make, thinking light only comes from heaven. Eternal rest grant unto her, O Lord, if she'll take it. When a man walks into confession, you expect guilt. You expect sin. But that night, what I heard wasn't confession. It was a cry for help. Not from the man behind the screen, but from something inside him. My name is Father Miguel Alvarez. I've heard thousands of confessions. but I only ever feared one. The one that began on a stormy October night, when a stranger walked in and whispered, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned," but it wasn't me who did it. It was nearly midnight when he entered, a tall man in a drenched coat, water dripping from his sleeves. The church was empty except for the flickering candles near the altar. He didn't kneel right away. He just stood there breathing hard as though he'd been running. Finally he sat and the words came out like broken glass. "I killed them, Father, but I wasn't the one holding the knife." I froze. My heart stopped. I've heard confessions of murder before, but never like that. He spoke as though he was describing something watching him, something he couldn't escape. "It starts when I'm alone," he said. "I hear crying, a man's voice, low, steady, like it's inside my head. He tells me to look in the mirror, and when I do, I see him. He's me, but he's not. He's crying and smiling." The man said the first time it happened, he'd been home shaving. He'd heard faint sobbing from behind him. When he turned, his reflection was crying blood. He thought it was a hallucination, a breakdown. But then he blacked out. When he woke up, there was blood on his hands, real blood. His dog was dead and he couldn't remember why. He went to doctors, psychiatrists, even stayed at a monastery for a month. Nothing helped. The crying man always came back. Always crying. Always whispering, "You took my place." I remember gripping the edge of the confessional, my knuckles white. There was a heaviness in the air like static. Then he asked, "Father, can I confess someone else's sin?" Yes. Before I could answer, the lights flickered. The storm outside grew violent. Thunder shook the pews. Then the air turned freezing cold. I couldn't see him through the screen anymore, only a shadow moving behind it. His voice changed, deeper, layered, almost like two voices speaking at once. "He doesn't want me to stop. He says if I do, he'll take my ace." The screen between us rattled violently. I backed away, clutching my rosary. Then silence. For a moment I thought he was gone. But when I leaned closer, I saw something on the other side of the screen. A wet handprint. And smeared across the wood in red letters. "Forgive me." I called the police. They searched the church, but the man was nowhere to be found. All they discovered was a trail of wet footprints leading out the back door, and vanishing halfway down the steps. 3 days later, a detective came to see me. They'd found a body. A man mid-40s matching the description. He was lying in a motel bathtub, throat slit. The strange part? He'd been dead for at least 6 hours before he entered my church. They showed me the photos. The man's face, pale, twisted, and wet, was frozen mid-scream. His eyes were black like burned H-balls. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound echoed, water dripping from pipes, footsteps in the hall. One evening, as I was locking up the church, I heard it. Crying. Soft, deep, familiar. It was coming from the confessional. When I opened it, the booth was empty, but the air was freezing. The wood smelled faintly of rain and iron. And etched into the wall were 3 fresh words. "He found me." I blessed the room, sealed it off, and never used it again. Months later, on the anniversary of that night, the crying returned. But this time, it came from my own reflection. I was in my quarters, brushing my teeth when I looked up. And there he was, the crying man. Tears running down his cheeks, mouth open, whispering soundlessly. Then he smiled. And behind the glass, I saw another me, not moving, not blinking. Just smiling as a single tear rolled down his cheek. When I turned to run, I slipped. And as I fell, the mirror cracked. A long fracture running right across my reflection's throat. Since that night, I don't keep mirrors. And sometimes when I pass the old confessional, I still hear sobbing. But it's not from behind the screen anymore. It's from the inside. Evil doesn't always come with horns or fire. Sometimes it comes asking for forgiveness. They told me it was just another troubled child. But what I saw inside that orphanage, it wasn't a child at all. My name is Father Gabriel. I've performed 3 exorcisms in my lifetime. Only one still keeps me awake at night, the girl from St. Mary's orphanage. And if I had known what she truly was, I would have never stepped foot in that building. It was 1993, 2 weeks before Halloween. The call came from Sister Evelyn, the head nun at St. Mary's, a small orphanage tucked deep in the countryside. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Father, one of the children has been speaking in voices that aren't her own. We think it's something unholy." I wanted to dismiss it, Maybe the child was troubled, traumatized. But when I arrived, I realized the fear in their eyes wasn't from superstition. It was from experience. The orphanage was an old brick building, surrounded by dead trees and thick mist. The children avoided one of the rooms at the end of the hall, room 13. That's where they kept her. Her name was Anna, 7 years old, small, pale, and silent, until the sun went down. Sister Evelyn led me to her bedside. Anna sat there, knees pulled up, staring at the wall. Her lips were moving, whispering something too low to hear. "Anna," I said softly, "do you know who I am?" Her head turned slowly, unnaturally slow. And when she spoke, it wasn't the voice of a child. "Ego te novi, Gabriel," which means "I know you, Gabriel." I froze. She'd spoken fluent Latin, an ancient dialect few priests still knew. Her eyes rolled back and the lights flickered. Every candle in the room went out at onk. The sister screamed. And in the sudden darkness, Anna started laughing, deep, guttural, echoing off the walls. The next day I interviewed the staff. They said strange things had started after Anna found a small wooden doll buried behind the orphanage chapel. No one knew who buried it, but since then crosses fell from the walls, doors slammed on their own, and children complained of nightmares. One boy told me he saw a shadow standing over Anna's bed at night. Another said she sometimes floated. When I returned to the chapel, I found something scratched into the floorboards beneath the altar. Read, "She is mine." The bishop gave me permission to perform an exorcism. But deep down, something told me we were too late. The ritual began at midnight. 4 nuns, myself, and a candlelit cross. Anna was tied to her bed with holy restraints. She seemed calm until the prayers began. As soon as I said, "In nomine Patris," her body convulsed violently. Her voice, no voices, screamed in agony, overlapping, echoing. "She doesn't belong to you. She's promised. You can't take her." The crucifix on the wall snapped in two. One nun fainted. The temperature dropped so fast our breath fogged the air. I continued praying, forcing the demon to name itself. Finally, through gritted teeth, Anna whispered, "We are the fallen choir. The ones who sang before you were born." Then she smiled, eyes pitch black, and said, "And now, Father Gabriel, will sing for you." Every candle exploded. The room filled with whispers, dozens of childlike voices singing a twisted lullaby. We held her down. Her body arched, levitating several inches off the bed. I poured holy water across her forehead. It hissed like acid. She screamed until her voice broke into a rasp. Then suddenly, silence. When the candles relit, she was lying still. Her pulse was faint but steady. It was over, or so I thought. That night, I stayed in the chapel, thanking God for saving her. But as I prayed, I heard it, faint footsteps behind me. When I turned, Anna was standing there, barefoot, eyes hollow. "He's gone now," she said softly. "He went inside you." Before I could react, she smiled and call up, said. Anna never woke up again. Her body was buried behind St. Mary's under a nameless stone. The church closed the orphanage months later after a fire destroyed most of it. They said it was electrical. But I saw the burn patterns, perfect circles around the chapel, as if something rose from the ground. And me? For weeks afterward, I'd wake up at 3 a.m. sharp, the same time the exorcism began, hearing children's voices humming that same lullaby. I left the priesthood a year later. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I still hear her whisper, "He's still inside you." If you ever visit St. Mary's ruins, don't touch the doll. You never expect the devil to knock on your door. But that night, he didn't knock. He walked right in and sat behind the confessional screen. I've heard murderers confess, adulterers, thieves, but nothing could have prepared me for what I heard that night. It was a cold October evening in 2004, 2 nights before Halloween. The church was quiet. Only the flickering candles and the scent of incense filled the air. I was preparing to close the confessional for the night when the doors creaked open. A man stepped inside, soaked to the bone, head bowed. His clothes were dark and torn, and his hands, they looked burned. He didn't say a word as he entered the booth. Just sat down heavily, breathing slow and steady. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned," he finally said. His voice was low. Calm. Too calm. "It's been a very long time since my last confession." I took a deep breath. "That's all right, my son. Tell me your sins." There was silence. Then, I killed 6 people tonight. I froze. I thought he was joking or delusional. What do you mean, my son? They screamed for mercy, he whispered. But I couldn't stop. He wouldn't let me. My skin went cold. I tried to remain calm. Who is he, my son? The man laughed softly, a hollow sound that made the candles flicker. He's the one you wear around your neck, father. Only mine doesn't forgive. I looked at the crucifix on the wall and felt my stomach turn. It was shaking. Just slightly, but enough for me to nod. The man continued, his tone changing, deeper, layered, like 2 voices speaking together. You've been praying for souls, father? Tonight I brought you a few. I whispered a silent prayer and reached for my rosary. Tell me your name, I demanded. You already know my name. And then, through the confessional screen, I saw his eyes, glowing faintly red in the candlelight. I backed away, clutching the rosary tighter. That's when he said something that made my blood run cold. You baptized me here, 30 years ago. I froze. I'd been the parish priest in this town for 30 years. I remembered baptizing a boy named Jacob Warren, sweet child, gentle eyes. But Jacob had died years ago, burned alive in a house fire. It couldn't be him. You died, I whispered. No, father. I was saved. He saved me. There was a sound, like claws scraping wood. I looked down. His hand had slid under the divider, nails black and cracked. He was bleeding, but the blood was thick, black, and steamy. I shouted for him to leave, but he only laughed. I came for my last confession, he said. And you're going to absolve me, or I'll make you listen to theirs. He lifted something I couldn't see clearly, but I heard it hit the floor. A child's shoe. Muddy. Burn. I stumbled out of the booth and ran toward the altar. But when I turned around, the church was empty. The confessional door hung open. Then I heard it, whispering, coming from inside the booth. Not one voice, dozens. Men, women, children, all whispering prayers in Latin. The smell of smoke filled the air. The confessional caught fire. I grabbed a cloth and tried to extinguish it, but as soon as I touched it, the wood was ice cold. And in the reflection of the altar's golden cross, I saw him standing behind me. Jacob, smiling. You can't confess what you never regretted, he said. And then he was gone. The fire department came minutes later. They said it was a gas leak that caused the smoke. But there were no pipes near the confessy. The shoe was never found. And the booth, no matter how many times we cleaned it, always smelled like sulfur. Weeks later, during Sunday Mass, a small boy came up to me. He handed me a piece of paper and said, "My friend Jacob said to give you this." On it was written, "Forgive me, Father, for I am not D1." Since that night, every Halloween someone leaves a burnt candle at the confessional door. Sometimes I hear footsteps in the booth, but when I look, it's EMP. Evil doesn't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes it kneels beside you. Sometimes it whispers through the screen. And sometimes it remembers your name. If you survived this story, prove it. Hit the like button and comment how you feel. Don't forget to subscribe to help us keep creating trembling stories for you.